Welcome, dear friends, to 21 Days with Paul and Stephen. Paul and Stephen, book discussion, author Emmanuel through the psychography of Chico Xavier. This is chapter 8. It's actually day 9. Day 9. Hi, Rita. Good morning. We are wrapping up a discussion on chapter 7, marching towards chapter 8. The story behind it, it's about, hi Leticia, it's all about Saul of Tarsus, the man of the Mosaic law, the doctor of the law that is taking everything so personal to him. Everything he's seeing around that disagrees with his ideas become personal enemies of his. So this is the first question for all of us as we take this therapeutic journey through the book discussion of Paul of Tarsus, Paul and Stephen. Good morning, Leticia. Do we take those who have different ideas, different ways of living, as personal enemies as well? Should we? We don't think so. Let's pay close attention. Hi, Valeria. Big kiss to you. So should we take those who think differently as personal enemies? Because if we do, we're just like Saul. Is that old man inside of us too? That's the first question of the day for us. Because he goes to the house of the way after imprisoning Stephen and is taking personal charge, arresting everyone he sees. But the interesting part of it all is that while he is marching towards arresting everyone who disagrees with him, hi Adilson, he sees beautiful things happening as well. So he sees healings, he sees love, mercy to the poor, kindness, gentleness, and he's not, to the least, he is not shaken in the fibers of his soul. But there's one moment in which he's arresting John and Peter and others. He doesn't arrest James because James is very much committed to the teachings of Moses as well. Hi, Felipe and Angelita. So he only arrests some of them. But there is a moment that is, as Emmanuel describes. It was on a clear morning, and this is page 160, almost at the end of chapter 7, before we enter chapter 8. It was on a clear morning, by the way, this is the paperback now, when surrounded by a number of companions and soldiers, the future rabbi knocked at the door of the humble house, making a big show of the purpose for his insidious visit. Simon Peter answered the door in person with great composure in his eyes. Unmasked fear spread among the most timid, while two young men accompanying the apostle ran back inside to spread the news. Are you Simon Peter, the former fisherman from Capernaum? Yes, I am, answered Peter firmly. Hi, Cesar Perry, it's great to have you here. You're under arrest, said the leader of the raid in a gesture of triumph. And he goes on, and we know that he arrests Peter, he arrests John, he doesn't arrest James, and he keeps arresting people until something quite interesting happens here. We needed to observe this because these are going to be strong factors that will propel him for the future transformation. Okay? So he has a man here who sees Peter being arrested and go ask for mercy. Okay? But Saul is deeply, deeply and personally threatened. And he's like, how come? You? Since when Must a man of the law answer to someone old and unclean? And our world nowadays is still much like that. We still haven't come to the conclusion that we're no different. We're no different. Deep inside, we're all the same. The armed guard started to advance to punish the brave man. However, the leprosy, he was a leopard man, defended Simonius from their attack. Taking advantage of the situation, the former proprietor from Caesarea retorted firmly. And then he said, when he's fulfilling his duties correctly, the man of the law does not have to give an accounting except to God. Hi, Joycey, big kiss. That's a question for us. Do we feel more than we know? It's about feeling that we need to give account of everything we do to God? Or are we constantly putting a mask and giving superficial account of what we're doing to society, thinking we're being approved of temporarily, but deep inside our conscience does not approve of us? That's a problem. So this is the first quiz of the day, since we are in this therapeutic journey. From 0 to 10, let us evaluate where are we regarding our awareness that we shall give account of everything we do to God. Where are we in regards to our awareness? 0 being not aware of it, 10 being like completely aware. Where are we? We need to know how deeply aware we are of the fact that we shall give account of everything to God. Everything. We cannot hide anything. Everything we think and feel and think and do, say, shall be held accountable. Thank you, Cesar. We really appreciate you being here. We've been traveling. We'll give you reply to your email today. We just got back from Long Island, many trips, moving home, etc. But I shall reply to you. Thank you for your patience. Hi, Rita. Thank you for being with us too. Hi, Thaisi. Hi, Caroline. So, friends, he is telling this to Saul, and Saul is very upset, to the point he calls one of his men, Synesius, and says, 10 lashes, we shall punish him for his insolent and viper's tongue. The children are around watching that cruelty, but they are taken. Okay, what happens next? I'm not going to give you much more details about the cruelty because it's not our time, but the reflections on it. Hi, Justina. It's good to be here with you too. Well, surprise, surprise. Hi, Tanya. Love you too. Surprise, surprise to all of my friends here, that Gamaliel, mentor of Saul, comes to him and shares things that are unexpected to Saul. He says, I came here and I'm asking you a favor. I must invoke my ascendancy over your spiritual formation to defend this man from the death penalty. For Saul, he thought that John, Peter, and Stephen and others should be killed just because they think differently. And I'm laughing because maybe today we don't physically kill people, but we kill their image. We slander them. We talk bad things about them. And that's a way we're still killing people in our lives. Emmanuel, in a book that is yet to be translated into English, Ceifa de Luz, through Chico Xavier, brings to us another take from this commandment. you shall not kill. It's not only, he says, about the killing of the body, but it's killing people's hope, killing their courage in their daily lives. We can't kill people's hope. Hi, Felipe. So we need to ask ourselves. Often we think obsessors are others. If we think constantly negatively about somebody, we become their obsessors. If we are, by any chance, always talking bad things about somebody, we're killing them. We're killing their image. This is another take on it. And why should we take everything personal if people think differently? It's okay. You know, having a toddler and being around many toddlers constantly, I realize that humanity is still at toddler level. Because we're constantly in this me, my, mine phase, like so. It's mine. No, me. When he hears that Gamaliel is going to retire, he rejoices like, wow, now the position is mine. Gamaliel is his mentor. I see that even in the Spiritist centers. People telling me, oh, the day that that president retires, I'm going to be the next president. And I'm like, really? Go form another center. Don't wait for people to get out of the position so you fulfill it, because it's not about position. It's about the task to be fulfilled. And we need many Spiritist centers around the world. You can form one. Do not be like a vulture, waiting for people to die, to be displaced so you can eat and be nourished and nourish your ego. And I'm saying this kindly to all of us, including myself. Saul brings to us the realization that we really need to renew ourselves. He is feeding himself of death, the death of those who don't think like him. Hi, Bernadette. Big kiss. So, he's feeding himself, Saul is feeding himself of ashes, of death. He wants to kill to feel victorious. That's when we contemplate nature, it's like the vultures. They feed themselves of dead bodies, corpses. Do we need to see somebody down to feel great? What if we start practicing more and more often Jesus' call to bring people's virtues up so we feel great, feeding ourselves of people's victory. When you see somebody achieving great things, let us rejoice for them, with them. We are not animals who feed ourselves of death to feel great. Saul is teaching us a lesson. He thinks his ego, he's going to be great when he kills somebody. He's going to be great when his mentor retires. He's going to be wonderful and victorious when death is spread out and he's imprisoning, arresting. Many people nowadays do so. Remember, we were advised by mentors, the mentors of the Spirit Side of Virginia, of Kardec Radio, to be in this journey with you 20 days, 21 days with Paul and Stephen. Why? Because of the outcome of the elections. And they were saying, the mentality now is very much like Saul. Saul's mentality. Let's kill this so we feel victorious. Let's put some people down so we feel great. So we need Jesus and Stephen's pathway to calibrate ourselves and rest assured that sooner or later we will come to the realization that we can only be victorious when we cherish life. The divine in others, the divine in us, and not the reverse. So let us go and listen to what happened here. The temperamental young man went pale when he got to know that his mentor Gamaliel was defending the disciples of Jesus. He was not used to compromising his opinions and decisions. How about us? Are we used to that? His wish was always tyrannical and inflexible. How many of us are like this? It's either my way or the highway. And we feel it's so personal to us when it's the opposite. However, Gamaliel had been his best friend at all times. Those wrinkled hands had taught him the holiest examples. Well, Saul was pale as he listened to such concepts, and in his opinion, there were a positive sign of weakness. That's how we take sometimes. When people disagree with us, we have to find a way to say, well, maybe they're sick. For us spiritists, we say they're obsessed. Isn't that funny? We tell people, oh, they disagree with us, they're obsessed. We always see the negative. We can't simply see that we're different. And that's it. It's not a bad thing. If it were, God would have not created us different, with the diversity that we express our divinity. Diversity is a sign of the divine. Diversity is a sign of the divine in the universe. We're learning it little by little. We're still threatened by the diversity, but diversity deep inside is a sign of the divine in the universe. Gamaliel said, too, so surprised that he's reading the scriptures regarding Jesus' life. I'm reading it, confirmed Gamaliel without hesitating, and I intend to meditate a bit longer on the phenomena that are happening at present. I foresee great changes everywhere. I intend to retire from public life in a few days in order to take up the way of the desert. It is clear, however, that my words must be kept by you as a token of mutual trust. Saul was shocked. He believed a respectable teacher to be mentally disturbed by too many deliberations. He goes on and he agrees at the end of his chapter he's going to free the disciples, but not Stephen. He says, I will agree to free the first three under one condition, because Peter and Philip are married. They may remain in Jerusalem, restricting their activities to helping the sick and the needy. By the way, for those who are together with us, another lesson for us. Peter and Philip married and devoted their lives to others. I know many people, even in the Spiritist movement, who think once you're married, you cannot help others because your focus is your family. Here we have our dear friend César Pérez de Carvalho, with his long experience, also an example of how you can have a family. He has a wife that is also very devoted, Célia, and his children who are also devoted to Spiritism. He has grandchildren, and he has made a great difference in the Spiritist movement, and still does, in Brazil and around the world. So, for us, family shall not disrupt our pathway of spreading love and spreading the reach out of our hearts to others. No, not necessarily, and not at all. We need to bring our family together, and if they don't want, leave it alone, and we go our way, loving our family, the nuclear family, and loving the universal family. So this is the second quiz for us for this morning. We usually have 3. This is the second. The second quiz is, how much am I devoting my daily life to helping the universal family? How much? Never? Sometimes? Often? Rarely? How much are we devoting our daily efforts to helping, supporting, and loving our universal family? And we are living at a time when it becomes much more easily done because of social media. You can reach out to your universal family, to all of us, by being here, by sharing good news, by encouraging people, by telling them that you're here for them, spreading good thoughts every day. Hi, Thais. But I know you are. I can see on your Facebook your love and kindness. But remember, let's do the deal, the exercise of the day. Once a day at least, think about others who are suffering and spread some good thoughts. Say a prayer. Send a good message on your Twitter, Instagram if you take a beautiful picture of a beautiful sunset or the sunrise. Whatever way you can do, go do grocery shopping, think of that cashier who is in front of you and say, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope you, Mary, Peter, John, and James, you have a beautiful day. Smile to somebody on your way to work or to school or to the laundry or whatever. Hi, Ana Luisa. Let us dedicate our lives more and more often to the universal family too. Our family, nuclear family, is going to be healthier when we do this movement that supports our vibrations. Let's think about it. Chapter 7 ends with that drama. Saul is shocked. His mentor now is going to study the teachings of Jesus. He feels a little lonelier because he doesn't have his mentor on board. Chapter 8 is dramatic, titled The Death of Stephen. Today we're talking so much about death, but that death means transformation. As Stephen is gonna die, transformation is taking place in both realms of life. The life and the death of each one of us has a deep connection with everyone around us. Deep connection. Transformation takes place not only for those who discarnate, but for those who stay and those who are in the spiritual realm. Each of our lives transforms everything. Thank you, Rita, for your kindness and for your support and for sharing this news. Thank you. Chapter 8. It's all about chapter 8. It's brutal, but it's beautiful. It's our transformation. Remember, the old man inside of us thinks that when death happens, we're being fed. We're going to learn today that it doesn't happen that way. Surprise, surprise. Death does not feed us. Transformation does. And Jesus said beautifully to his disciples, truth is not imposed. It actually transforms us. When Saul is going to face the death of Stephen, he's going to be transformed too. He will. Despite Saul's intense activities, the young man from Tarsus never failed to appear right on time at Zacharias' house, where in Abigail's heart he found the repose he needed so much. You see, the educator Emmanuel, the author of the book, he's describing, he's narrating in a very therapeutic way. He titles it The Death of Stephen, but as a wonderful educator, he calms our heart and says, look, the man I'm going to present to you now is still very cruel, but he already has a loving heart. He already has the need to be nourished by love. The problem is that he doesn't know yet that he can bring that to him, to his life everywhere, not only his romantic life. But he's going to introduce to us a feature, again, a feature of soul that exists inside of us too. Hi, Georgie. Hi, Juliano. Hi, friends. So, he's going to tell us, the man I'm going to show to you, who is cruel, he's also like us. Like us, we want to go home like Saul and find love. But we can't forget that this love is everywhere. Not only in our nuclear families, not only in the circle of our friends, everywhere. He is gonna find it in bitter ways, through bitter pathways. If the struggles in Jerusalem consumed his energies, he appeared to recover them at his beloved's side, in a sweet enchantment with which he awaited the fulfillment of his dearest hopes. He felt that the world was a battlefield on which it was up to him to fight for God's law. However, since the Eternal One was just and generous, he had granted Saul repose in the consolation of his chosen one's devotion. Abigail was his world of sentiment. He poured into his betrothed hearts, full of love, compassion, and righteousness, all the everyday battles, the stern measures his job required of him, and the harshness with which he had to deal with issues entrusted to his forum. He received his thoughts with loving attention and seemed to temper them in the tenderness of her feminine soul, handing them back to her beloved in the form of caring and uprighting suggestions. He had gotten used to such precious daily exchanges. Why is Emmanuel, the educator in Spiritism, teaching us this? He's saying not everybody is completely ignorant and evil. We all are made of love. We gravitate to love. We feed ourselves of love. But our blindness, due to ego, selfishness, and pride, make us create death around us unnecessarily. Are we tired of it? Yes. Do we have people in our lives that we take as enemies, as competitors? Do we? Because if we do, chapter 8 is all about saying to us, don't expect your competitor or your so-called enemy to be down and dead for you to feel victorious. Because you'll be surprised that deep inside, you need that person to be truly divine. Hi Vanessa, hi Marilda. Friends, this is the transition of the earth. No one is our enemy. No one is a competitor of ours. These are illusions of the ego. We're going to learn in chapter 8 that when we await for the death of somebody, physical or spiritual, psychological, we are actually going to be surprised by life to know that that person is what we need, is the pathway we need to actually elevate ourselves. So today is our march towards reconciliation. Take a second look at the person you think is a competitor, that you think is a roadblock in your life, a stumbling block in your life, revisit it. Think. God created that person too. That person is divine. What about finding the divine features of that person, the divine essence in that person, and the similarities in us? Sooner or later, we're destined to be friends. We are brothers and sisters in humanity forever. You know, these things of children like sister forever, brothers forever. That's what we are. We are and will be brothers and sisters forever. Let's rejoice in it. Why do we have to be children to rejoice in that feeling that we are brothers and sisters forever? Each and every day, God is giving us time to say, I'm giving you one more minute. Reconsider it. Reconsider it. Thank you for the love, friends. I can feel it. We can all feel it. Let's support each other in this journey today. The journey of reconciliation. Well, he's there. He's seeing Abigail. And Abigail's presence was a cool balm of sweetness to his soul. You see, he is human like us. The people you're seeing, even president-elect, vice president-elect, all of them, I know you may not like it, but even the supremacists, they're wrong. They're blind by ego. But they are children of God too. Let's pray. We'll see in this book that Peter and the disciples of Jesus were praying for the persecutor's soul all along. No wonder he changed his heart. Prayer. Let us acknowledge the divine in everyone. Hi, Karen. And when we acknowledge the divine in everyone, we support that divine essence that will help the person crack the blind shield and see more clearly. We all are destined to be one, to be loving to one another. Saul is talking to Abigail, Ruth, and Zechariah about his plans, and he decided, I'm going to take you, Abigail, to Jerusalem, Delilah, my sister, and I'm going to introduce you to my family, to my friends, but I want you to be especially in the stoning of Stephen. And we're like, oh, as you know, we are reading this book, we say, man, it's the Nobel Prize of Literature for Emmanuel, because the way he writes the book makes us, the readers, feel we are almost there at the scene. And we're reading like, what? You're gonna bring Abigail to the stoning of her brother? He doesn't know that Stephen is Jeziel, Abigail's brother. He loves Abigail. He hates Stephen, not knowing that Stephen is Abigail's brother. What? Is it life? Playing a trick? Sarcastically? Entrapping Saul? No, of course not. He is voluntarily marching towards it. Saul invited Abigail for their usual walk. On that night, nature seemed to be full of wonder. He made promises. And he said, I want you to be there because I want us to get married, be together. But I want you to be present in my first victory. The stoning of the man who betrayed our law. But she's like, is there a way to spare me from such spectacle? She's very shy. I have never gotten my father's death at the hands of brutal soldiers out of my mind. Saul did not disguise the fact that he was upset. You see, when we are blinded by our ego, we cannot see other people's pain. Abigail went through a very tough time, but Saul cannot, at the very moment that his ego is in place, he cannot see it. But don't you see? He is not seeing it. He thinks she doesn't see it. We project. We project our limitations onto others. Stephen's case is much different. He is a man of no significance to us, one who has set himself up as a seditious and insolent reformer. Don't you think we should punish the thief who robs a house? The young girl grasped the fact that she would displease her beloved one if she showed a difference of opinion, and added, I can see that you're right. I shouldn't argue with your wise and just concepts. Besides, I have every intention of winning over your friends in the Sanhedrin, because I haven't lost hope in our handling of Jeziel's case as soon as an opportunity arises for a new search in Achaia. But listen, Saul, if you allow it, I'll go when the ceremony is almost over. All right? Noticing her conciliatory goodwill, Saul displayed a broad smile of satisfaction. Yes, we are agreed. However, I hope you watch everything with peace of mind, certain that I could only make right decisions and carry out my duties. Yeah, this is how our ego sounds when we impose ourselves onto others. Other people's needs are minimal or not existent, and our needs are always above it all. So we need to ask if we are in the same pathway. So she was there, and to cut it short, because the description is in the book, you can read it. It's very interesting, the details. But today we're gonna go and with Stephen take a new journey. Abigail and Stephen today are gonna teach us how we handle the old man inside of us. Okay? This chapter is not simply about the death of Stephen. It's about how a Christ-conscious soul who is fully aligned and truly aligned with Jesus is leading us into facing the old man inside of us and around. Saul is in the temple. They're going to start the ceremony to stone Stephen to death. Stephen's face was now reddened with shame because he was semi-naked. And he was brought into the humiliation, hurt. People are insulting him, bullying him. He's shackled again. And they bring him to the atrium where he's going to be stoned. As he extended his wrists to receive the cuffs, Simon Peter's disciple suffered such forceful blows from one unscrupulous soldier that the blood from his wounded wrists started to flow freely. Emmanuel is sharing these details with us to open our hearts. Let's remember that when Jesus advises Nicodemus, it's not enough to know the scriptures. You forgot to feel them. Emmanuel, through these very detailed descriptions, is opening the doors of our feelings. So not only we know of information, but we feel them. Let's feel it. Stephen did not make the slightest attempt to resist. That's one of the first lessons. No resistance. No. Does it mean we're not going to do anything to make things right? We will. But in this case, Stephen could not do anything. So this is the lesson. When you try everything and life blocks you, don't resist. We commit suicide when we resist the call of life. But I'm feeling imprisoned, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling depressed. Do not resist. We need to learn about emotions. They're not going to swamp us as long as we trust in God. He's teaching us. When that force of ignorance is imprisoning us, even the one inside of us, when we look at ourselves in the mirror one day, that we're feeling we didn't make the right decision in life, and we are escaping away from facing our own selves, let's look at ourselves in the mirror and not resist the old man inside of us. It's imprisoning us in our shortcomings. Let's not be ashamed. Let's look at ourselves in the mirror and say, okay, I know, Vanessa, today you were selfish when you make such a decision. It's okay. I know you did not know what you were doing, but now we know. Next time around, we're going to make it different. I forgive you, Vanessa. And we need to look ourselves in the eyes and have that encounter without resistance. Thus we'll be able to be more forgiving towards others, but it begins with us. Well, in spite of the insults and the wounds that lacerated him, Stephen felt an unknown peace of spirit. All these ceremonial sufferings were for Christ. You're right, Adilson, no resistance. Thank you. Yeah, the love of Christ flows through our vessels. You're right. But you see, he shows us another pathway here. He says, these ceremonial sufferings are for Christ. This hour was his divine opportunity. The Master of Nazareth had called his faithful heart to bear public witness to the spiritual worth of his glorious doctrine. Fully trusting, he thought, if the Messiah had accepted the infamous death of Calvary to save all, would it not be an honor to give my life for him? Should not his heart, always eager to bear witness to the Master, ever since he had come to know the gospel of redemption, now rejoice at the change of offering him his own life? The order to walk tore him from his lofty thoughts. Hi, Daniela. Big kiss to the community in Atlanta. So, friends, remember, our sufferings not necessarily are only ours. Hi, Edgar. Big kiss to the family. Now we are asking ourselves, how much of our suffering are we dedicating to Jesus and facing courageously? Whether it's a disease or a social suffering, even our national suffering now, for those who didn't agree with the president-elect. We don't know what's going to happen next after December 19th. We don't know. Things may change or not. For now, let us send positive thoughts. We can only drive out darkness with light, said Martin Luther King Jr. Pray. Life can present quote-unquote miracles we never expect. And we say miracles figuratively because Kardec shows to us that miracles are just things we don't understand, but everything is under the law of God. We cannot bend the laws of God. But here, the old man inside of us is in need of what? A new attitude, Stephen's attitude. First, do not resist. Second, he shows to us, offer our sufferings to Jesus and say, you are taking care of us. You have showed us the pathway. Now I am offering this testimonial to you. Don't take everything personal. Some people tell me, Vanessa, I think life is playing a joke on me. No. We are here to learn and to serve. To learn and to serve every day, says Emmanuel. We're here to learn. It's not a joke. It's serious. Life is presenting us opportunities to grow. Not a joke. The kind preacher of the way faltered in staggering steps, but his eyes were firm and serene, displaying fearlessness in his final moments of testimony. Our bodies may be collapsing because of age, because of disease, because of tiredness, but deep inside, the heart and the eyes are filled with joy, because those who know Jesus know that we're filled with the joy of living, the hope that everything is going to be transformed, and the courage to keep fighting, to keep transforming ourselves, loving everyone, forgiving and forgetting. And science already proves to us that it's possible to forget as long as we form new memories. That's the trick to displacing old memories, is forming new ones, healthier ones. If we keep rewinding the tape of the same old story again and again and again and again and again and again, we'll never be anew. We will create diseases in our bodies, in our minds. In those early hours of the afternoon, the sun in Jerusalem was a burning brazier. In spite of the unbearable heat, the crowd moved with great interest. It was the first case entailing the activities of the way after the death of its founder. Stephen was the first martyr after Jesus, the first martyr of Jesus' teachings after Jesus' death. Although displaying profound sadness, Stephen walked half-naked, serene, imperturbable. That's our goal. Life is presenting us challenges, but deep inside we're serene. After the election, we're still striving for a better society, but deep inside we're serene because we're not alone. We have 2/3 of the population of this planet in the discarnate plane. We have major illuminated spirits ahead of us, helping us. We need to join forces with them and make a daily decision to join them in constructive thoughts. We have 2 pathways, says André Luiz in the book Mechanisms of Mediumship through Chico Xavier: constructive thoughts or destructive ones. If we have destructive thoughts, we're going to join in the tune of destructive currents around the world. We don't want that. Constructive thoughts, positive feelings, loving people, hugging the ones we're nearby, kissing people, reaffirming to each one of us that life is getting better, and it shall, because we are here together. Well, it was crazy, I tell you the truth. I cannot read everything, but the cruelty in the atrium of the temple was bubbling. It was actually like boiling. Crazy ideas like, let's save the head to keep the show intense and interesting. So if you think the current times are crazy, this was crazier. The world is getting better. When you read this book, you are sure the world is getting better, because the description of this is cruelty to the level, unimaginable levels. Split a leg for the Idumeans. Strike the heart in the name of the Cilicians. It's crazy. Well, the martyr of the way felt supported by powerful and intangible forces in spite of it all. See, we're never alone. In the greatest moments of our transition on the earth, we have loving and kind spirits with us. With each new blow, he felt the unending suffering increase as his macerated body was punished, but inwardly he had the feeling of sublime gentleness. His heart was beating irregularly, his chest was covered in deep wounds, his ribs were broken. At that ultimate hour, he remembered the smallest ties of faith that bound him to a higher life. He remembered all his favorite prayers from childhood. I'm telling you, this is chapter 8. Have you noticed Emmanuel in each and every chapter telling us that the way to succeed in life is spirituality in childhood, religiosity in childhood? We need to give the most precious treasure to our children, God. Conscious gift, God. The mission of parents to connect them to God consciously. Says St. Augustine in chapter 14, item 9 of the Gospel according to Spiritism. Again and again, the educator Emmanuel is telling us, focus on childhood. Let's help our children around the world, reminding them that without God, we cannot succeed. Only God. But a God that is loving to all, that doesn't make a difference. A God that is not a human being. A God that is the supreme intelligence and love of the universe. He made an effort to visualize the death of his tortured and misunderstood father. Inwardly, he repeated the Psalm 23 of David, as he had been used to doing with his sister in situations that seemed insuperable. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. The words of the sacred writings, as well as Christ's promises in the gospel, were in the core of his heart. His body was broken, but his spirit was tranquil and hopeful. So this is an invitation for all of us, my friends. This world may be convulsing with changes, but deep inside, if we have these teachings in our hearts, we're tranquil and hopeful. Thank you. Big love to all of you. Now he had the feeling that two loving hands were passing lightly over his grievous wounds, providing him with a soft sensation of relief. Without any fear, he felt that the sweat of the final agony had come. And dedicated friends from the spirit realm were surrounding the martyr in his final minutes. At the highest point of physical pain, as if he had passed through infinite abysses of perception, the young man from Corinth noticed that something had been torn asunder in his anxious soul. His eyes seemed immersed in glorious visions of another life. The legion of Jesus' emissaries, lovingly surrounding him, seemed like the court of heaven. On the path of light, unfolding in front of him, he saw someone approaching with open arms. You know, if we cry, it's valid because it's very moving. From Peter's descriptions, he perceived that he was beholding the Master himself in all the splendor of his divine glory. So saw the condemned man's eyes were ecstatic and blazing. That was when the Christian hero exclaimed in a loud voice, I see the heavens opened and Christ resurrected in the grandeur of God. Do you think Jesus is going to abandon us at the current times? At the most critical times, Jesus is with us. I know of a beautiful movement in the Second World War that started with a Catholic woman. She started the Focolare movement. She was an Italian who was truly faithful. She was a nun, an Italian. And the airplanes were throwing bombs. The only way was to pray and stay still. She was there and there was a fireplace. And she said, Jesus is giving us the fire of hope. She created a new movement, the Focolare movement in the Catholic Church, that is beginning a new pathway for economic and social dispositions. I've met them personally in one of the cities in Brazil 20-some years ago, and I am in deep admiration for it. Like Stephen, she was seeing death before us, but she kept trusting, and Jesus showed her the pathway. As Emmanuel says in this beautiful preface of the book Paul and Stephen, we are being personally called by Jesus to fulfill our mission with God. Each one of us, no exception. So as we wrap up this moment, in this description, when at the most crucial time of his death, Stephen meets Jesus, we can ask ourselves whether or not we are ready for this ultimate encounter, which shall be in the death of our ego. Sometimes the old man inside of us is so ancient that it seems we're going to climb an unsurmountable mountain of ego to reconciliate. Well, my friends, there is no other way. Either we allow the new person inside of us to leave, or we are going to be surprised, like Saul is about to be surprised. He brings Abigail to the scene, and at this very moment, very moment, Stephen turned his eyes compassionately to Saul, his executioner. It was then that he saw next to him the figure of his sister, dressed as one those happy days at their father's house. It was his beloved little sister for whose affection his heart has so often beaten with longing and hope. How could her presence there be explained? Listening to the condemned man's words and receiving his burning and clear look, Abigail realizes in anguishing astonishment it's her brother. She turns to Saul and says, Saul, it's my brother. She exclaimed in alarm. Can you feel the tragedy? It's tragic. What do you mean? Stuttered Saul in a low voice, opening his wide eyes. He can't be. Are you crazy? No, it's him, she repeated, looking extremely pale. It's Jeziel. Abigail insisted in dread. Darling, give me 1 minute. Let me talk to the dying man for only 1 minute. Impossible, retorted Saul in ire. So, for the love of Moses, for the love of our fathers, please, she exclaimed, wringing her hands. Gamaliel's ex-disciple could not believe such a coincidence was possible. By the way, Spiritism explains there are no coincidences. Life is perfect. We are magnetically attracted to one another. We can't escape from the draw of love. And if we do, life is going to surprise us, like Saul is right now being surprised by life. Hi, Clea. Big hug to you. There was the difference in the names. this point had to be clarified before anything else. So he immediately called a high-order functionary and said, "Order the body to be taken to the priest's chamber." And the man respectfully answered, "Sir, the condemned is not dead yet." He says, "It doesn't matter. Go anyway. I will extract his confession of repentance in his final hour." The order was immediately carried out. In the meantime, Saul asked for several amphors of fine wine to be served to his friends and admirers to commemorate his first victory. Then, frowning and apprehensive, and accompanied by Abigail, he left almost furtively for the room reserved for the priests of Jerusalem. Passing through the groups, greeting him with frenetic acclamations, Saul seemed distracted. He took Abigail's arms gently, but he did not say a single word to her. This surprise had stricken him mute. What if Stephen were in fact that Jezebel, whom they had awaited so anxiously? Absorbed in anguishing thoughts, they entered the lonely chamber. Saul ordered the assistants to leave and cautiously bolted the door. Abigail, her blood-covered brother with infinite tenderness, and displaying a pain-filled effort of final agony, Stephen murmured, "Abigail." The voice was almost a whisper, but the look was calm and clear. Saul drew back, taken with fear. What did it all mean? My friends, the description is perfect because it tells us the pathway to our inner transformation. The old man inside of us will only die when we face the corpus of the old man in the chambers of our conscience. That's why the corpus is brought in, almost the corpus is brought in the chamber of the high priests, showing to us that this inner shift is only gonna happen in the highest levels of our conscience. But fear will take place, like fear is presented to Saul right now. The first thing that happens to us when we are presented with the possibility of transformation is fear. Fear of whom? Fear of the ego. He describes here, what did it all mean? There was no doubt. And he's asking, what mechanism of fate had created such a situation, which was to grieve him for the rest of his life? Where was God, who had inspired him in the labyrinth of circumstances that led him to that irremediable and cruel outcome? He felt possessed of unlimited grief. He who had elected Abigail to be the protecting angel of his existence would have to renounce her love forever. My friends, we will only make the shift of our conscience when we face it in the chambers of it. Fear and grief will come because the ego is being challenged. What are people gonna think of us? So is thinking. What are people gonna think of me? I have to renounce my love. And you see, he has two pathways: fear and grief, death, ego, or love, Abigail. The transition to the young man, Stephen, from Saul the old to the new Stephen, has a bridge: love, Abigail. Abigail is the representation of love in our lives. We have a choice to allow us to easily be taken by the hands of love and let ego be transformed by the self of the immortal soul. Or allow fear, grief, and death to be present inside of us forever. Who is the bridge of love in your life? We all have bridges of love presented to us. Maybe in a family member, a relative, a friend, somebody. Somebody is that bridge of love. Today, Stephen and Abigail are the bridges of love in our lives. So this is the last quiz of the day for us. Who is the bridge of love in our lives? How can we let this bridge take us to the young man, woman inside of us? We're still incarnated. It's easier to make these shifts here. Let us be invited by this transformation. And let me read here. Our dear friend Joyce is saying, thank God we have so many examples such as the lovely, amazing Stephen to inspire us and teach us how powerful our thoughts, love and faith could be. And if so, we're able to change inside, we all certainly have the power to do the same. This book is amazing. Thank you, my friend. What an amazing lesson, Vanessa, you're right. I have almost no words for the intense reaction to this part of the book. Me too. Yes, you are the bridge, Adilson. I know, I can feel we are all bridges. But friends, Abigail is our bridge now. That's why Jesus said, come to me and with me, because it's easy. This pathway is soothing. It's much harder to stay in fear. How many people are taking decisions in life based on fear? I remember when I had to make this difficult decision, changing my professional pathway temporarily, because I prioritized taking care of Virginia, my daughter, 18 years at the University of Maryland. And I prayed to God, and I thought, fear of the unknown, fear of not being as respected by society, by leaving prestige and status, professionally speaking. But you know, love comes first. I have no regrets. I have no regrets. No regrets each and every day. And I say, you know, thank you, God, for allowing me to choose love. Thank you for allowing me to say no to fear. Fear to my ego. And thanks to Carlos for allowing me to take this journey, for supporting us in this journey, and for also saying no to his fear. And I shared this very personal to you, my friends, not as a role model, but sharing with you that it's possible to make these decisions today. I have not quit professional endeavors, but I understand that the mission of parenthood is above everything else. The mission of reaching out to each one of us in our lives is the pathway. There is no fear with Jesus, says Valeria Benfica. You're right, Valeria. When we have Jesus in us, fear vanishes. We don't know what's going to happen next, but we trust in God that it's going to happen. Jesus is our Savior, says brother to sister. You see, the masculine in Stephen is reassuring the feminine in Abigail. She's saying the feminine is questioning, who is Christ? It's the masculine, the certainty, telling to the feminine the direction. Stephen to Abigail. Perfect psychological take. Hi, Danielle. And now they call me Stephen. Forgive me. It was out of gratitude. Oh, and this is before Thanksgiving week. One cannot be thankful to God if he does not show gratitude to men. That's the wrap up for today. How can we exercise in this week of Thanksgiving in the United States gratitude to men as a bridge to express our gratitude to God? Each and every day this week, let's express our gratitude to people in our lives and feel Jesus closer to us. The Jesus who is a friend, who is our guide, who is our model, our shepherd. And let us feel the love and share it without fear, without hesitation, with everyone we encounter. My friends, it's always a joy to be with you. Thank you for being together. Tomorrow we shall march towards a beautiful unfoldment, a beautiful one in which the old man is dying and the new one inside of us is becoming stronger as we speak. A big hug to all of you. And let us not forget, one cannot be thankful to God if he does not show gratitude to men. Big hug to all of you. Hi, Danielle.